Hello and welcome. I am Light, and this is my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about a missing child. It's the case of a 5-year-old boy who went missing in the woods and was never seen again. As of 2014, the bedroom of Victor Dwight Shoemaker Jr., also called Junior, was frozen in time, as if the boy would return at any moment. His room was exactly the way he had left it, including the cartoon-themed bedspread on his bed. His parents were holding out hope that their 5-year-old son, who disappeared now 24 years ago, is still alive. It has been 24 years since 5-year-old Junior went missing without a trace, causing suspicion, a family rift, grief, and ultimately an unsolved mystery. On May 1st, 1994, Junior and his family were visiting his grandfather, Oscar Wolford, for a family reunion. Mr. Wolford's mobile home was situated on property on the outskirts of Short Mountain, which is a long and relatively low mountain range of 8,000 acres. In the early morning hours, at about 8 a.m., Junior and two of his cousins, 8-year-old Lloyd Wolford and 9-year-old Tommy Martin, took their BB guns into the woods to, quote, go a-huntin', according to their grandfather, which is something that the boys did regularly and caused no concern to either Mr. Wolford nor Junior's parents, Victor Sr. and Mother Nettie. In fact, according to Mr. Wolford, who told the press, it was the boys' hobby to do so. They would go out and then they would come back and claim that they had gotten their big buck. During the interview, Mr. Wolford chuckled at the memory of the adventurous boys. According to the two cousins, they'd been playing for about a half an hour when Junior stated that he was hungry and his tummy was growling, and he wanted to head back for breakfast. Neither cousin went with him, as Junior took off to head back to his grandfather's mobile home alone. Junior never made it back and was never seen again. And within an hour, a search party had gathered to find the little boy, after the two cousins had returned to the mobile home and reported that Junior should have been there a long time ago. The search became huge, with hundreds of searchers coming to help from West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., and North Carolina. Making the search more difficult was the rough terrain, the heavy brush, and also the weather conditions, which were foggy and rainy, and in some places the visibility was barely 10 feet. The temperatures even dipped below freezing. At first, police suspected that it was possible, because the area was popular with hunters, that the boy had been accidentally shot by a hunter, but because hunting is illegal on Sundays in the area and they had found no blood and no body, this idea was quickly dismissed. Nettie and Victor Sr. were older parents who had tried for many, many years to conceive a child, so they were particularly careful when it came to Junior's safety. And in fact, the area behind Mr. Wolford's home was the only area that Nettie felt comfortable letting the boy play away from her sight. At the time of his disappearance, Junior was wearing a red Bugs Bunny t-shirt, red shorts, and white X-Men tennis shoes. Junior was familiar with the mountainside and always knew his way back. And I know that a lot of us parents are wondering how it's possible that the parents or the grandparents of these boys felt that it was okay to let them wander alone in the woods with the thick brush and the rocks, etc. And I understand that. I just want to add something here. When I was growing up, I too grew up in the woods and was allowed to wander and take along my younger brother, who was 2 years younger than me. We would wander quite a ways from our house and follow trails and build forts, invent adventures, and no one even thought twice about it. I grew up outside, and we'd leave the house by 8 o'clock, come back for dinner, and go out and play again in the dark. Closer to home, but still. Life is different for families who raise children in areas like this, and some of us think of these areas as wild and scary, and I understand that. But if you're living there and raising kids there, it's a different mentality. My parents wanted us to go out and use our imagination, and yeah, we got hurt sometimes, but I loved that I was allowed to pretty much be feral. And I just wanted to comment for those of us that don't live that way, and I currently don't live that way, and my children don't have a forest to run wild in. But I was just wanting to add that even though it is hard to imagine, it doesn't make those choices wrong. It just makes it a different way of life. In an account given by Junior's adult cousin, Valerie Cooper, there were 3 rocks arranged in a triangle that they had found. There was a stick in the middle, and there were 3 logs on the sides. The dirt was freshly disturbed. She was quoted as saying, "It looks like somebody trying to build a house." The idea being that perhaps the young boy had tried to create some shelter and possibly had spent the night out there, although there actually were no traces of him found, no footprints or handprints. A Maryland State Police helicopter equipped with infrared equipment was brought in. It was used to detect heat, and it repeatedly flew over the terrain. They brought in divers who searched through the murky water of the several ponds on the property and also the cold creeks. The search for Junior was comprehensive, but it was fruitless. There was no tangible evidence. The volunteers and the search and rescue crews worked tirelessly to find this child, and in a tragic twist, an exhausted volunteer with the Appalachian Search and Rescue Team, her name was Lisa K. Hannenfeld, fell asleep at the wheel after an all-night search, hit a tree, and she died on May 3rd, 1994. So, after 5 days of searching in the freezing cold and the rainy weather, the official search was called off on the evening of May 5th. However, over the next 5 months, the National Guard and the Army Reserve units used their weekend training time to search for signs of the boy, but there were never traces of him found. In 1994, the authorities told the family and the press that they did not suspect foul play. They surmised that the possibility of a stranger abduction in this remote area was probably 1 in a million, because there was one main road to and from this area, and it was seldom used. They surmised that Junior had tragically gotten lost and died from exposure. However, it is interesting to note that the FBI was called in to assist in this case, which suggests that authorities at least considered the fact that there was foul play, possibly an abduction, and maybe even one in which Junior was taken across state lines. Victor Sr. and Nettie Shoemaker refuted the theory that their boy got lost. They said that he knew the area too well. They also stated that they believed that the cousins acted strangely when they returned to their grandfather's mobile home, and they haven't talked to the family since. When Victor Sr. tried to talk to the other boys, he claimed, quote, they wouldn't say anything about it. Victor Sr. believes that the boys know what happened to their son, but he also says that he doesn't believe that the boys themselves hurt him. Both cousins were questioned about their knowledge of what happened, and both passed lie detector tests. And in probably the most chilling thing said about this case, one of the boys, when asked what happened, he responded by saying, somebody hiding behind a tree got up and grabbed him or shot him. So, this makes me wonder, why did one of the families move away? and never speak to Junior's family again. Had someone frightened the boys, maybe threatened them and their family. Junior's family and the vast majority of the locals in the area believe that Junior was abducted. Nettie was quoted as saying, "Somebody had to have taken him off the hill." John Pindle, who is a hunter and also owns a cabin in the area, said, "I know the woods pretty well. If he was in the woods, they would have found him. There's something phony going on." One of the search dogs that was called in to help in the search kept his nose stuck straight up in the air as opposed to sniffing on the ground. This dog led searchers to a field, abruptly stopping at that one and only road leading in and out of the area. This confirmed to the locals that somebody could have abducted Junior and carried him through the field and possibly had a car waiting on the road. Then, several years later, in 1997, the FBI finally said that there was knowledge of a dark blue pickup truck in the area in which Junior vanished. They said that lead never panned out because the owner of that truck never came forward, and there was no other further information known about the truck. Although you have to ask, how would the owner of the truck come forward if it hadn't been publicly announced that they were looking for him? So, what happened to this baby, this 5-year-old child? What did the cousins see? What do they know? Did the boy get lost, taking the same path that he had taken dozens, if not more, times? Would a stranger randomly go into the woods and just sit there waiting in case a small 5-year-old boy happened to wander in that direction? That doesn't seem plausible to me either. So, does the FBI know more than they are saying? Why were they called in? Why did they go? Why did it take so long to release the information about the blue truck in the area? And how did Victor Shoemaker Jr., who was just 5 years old, go missing without a trace? Thank you for coming to my channel. If this type of content interests you and you're not already subscribed, please do. And if you wouldn't mind, please give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you'd like to be notified when my content goes live or we have a live podcast, go ahead and click that bell.